blame you for being ruthless. I admire it. It's what we share. But I'm ruthless in business, not with the people I love.
Oh boy. That is George and Bertha ending things in a surprisingly rough spot there at the end of episode 8 of season 3, the grand finale of the Gilded Age. We are back with the official Gilded Age podcast. I'm Tom Meyers from the Bowery Boys podcast, joined as always by my friend from TCM, Alicia Malone. Hi, Alicia.
Hi, Tom. I feel like I'm just catching my breath after that finale episode. I mean, let's count it. We had an emergency surgery for George. We had an engagement for Peggy. We had 2 balls, yeah?
2, right, because one's not enough. Don't forget there's all of the Larian drama. George leaves Bertha and comes back and leaves again. Pretty much all in the same episode. There is so much drama. And we will be talking our way through all of this in episode 8, the very final episode of this season. But wait, don't worry, because we will have an additional bonus episode of the podcast released this week, this very week. We're not done yet.
That's right. There's just too much to fit into one podcast episode, especially because today we also have interviews with Louisa Jacobson, who of course plays Marian, the director and executive producer, Sally Richardson-Whitfield, and you'll hear part 2 of our chat with Carrie, Coon and Morgan Spector, George and Bertha Russell.
So let's get to the recap. This is episode 8 of season 3, My Mind's Made Up. Written by Julian Fellows and Sonia Warfield and directed by Sally Richardson-Whitfield.
This episode begins in a very dramatic fashion. We see horses and a carriage galloping down the street. Inside the carriage is a bleeding George Russell and Brinkley, and the camera is handheld. It's shaky. It's moving. We'll have to ask Sally Richardson-Whitfield about directing this because all of that camera work really adds to the tension of the scene.
Oh, yeah. It feels tense. It feels chaotic. You're just catching, glimpses of people on the sidewalk. I think I saw Bannister smoking outside. Yeah. And then, fortunately, he was there because he hustles over and tells, Bertha that there is a doctor in their house. But he adds, I should tell you, he's colored. She doesn't care. And soon Dr. Kirkland is over in the Russell house.
Yeah, and it's a very emotional scene. Bertha is crying. Marian is there helping. Blood is being mopped up. I felt a lot of emotion. I felt sorry for George. There was no pain medication, and this whole scene is just heightened and scary.
Yeah, I was just tense watching the whole thing. I mean, even when I looked away from my screen, I could still hear it. And those sound effects, Alicia, were vivid. Let's just say. We see Dr. Kirkland fishing around and pulling out a bullet there. But then we see George get very stiff. I wasn't sure if he was going to make it.
I know. When it cut back after the surgery, I thought he might have actually died. Luckily, he didn't. It's such a good thing that Dr. Kirkland was there. He knew what to do. He said he had seen plenty of gunshot wounds in his career. But also, not only did that surgery happen without any anesthetic, did you notice that nobody really washed their hands?
That's right. Well, by 1884, I think that surgeons and doctors were washing their hands before surgeries, but not so much the general public. And I doubt in a situation like this where people were just racing to help out, I think that this was all hands on deck, dirty or not. And this is something that we will speak about in more detail in the next episode when we interview Dr. Stanley Burns, who helped as a medical consultant on this very scene.
Yeah, and the whole thing is just really terrifying. I mean, the Russell household, the Van Ryn household are shocked about what has happened. Peggy is worried about Dr. Kirkland, and later we see George give him some money to say thank you.
And judging by the look on Dr. Kirkland's face, I'm thinking that was quite a check.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how much. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm just hoping it's enough to cover a wedding. We'll get to that in a second. But what do you think might have happened to Dr. Kirkland if George Russell had died?
Well, I think it could have been very serious for him. personally and professionally, remember, we've been talking about how segregated the medical field was at this time, how much discrimination Black doctors faced. I think that he could have lost a lot of patients. He could have been in a very bad spot professionally and possibly, even faced violence. So this was very risky for him. And George is right when he says that we need to add courage to your long list of virtues.
Yeah, absolutely. He has courage. He has a lot of virtues, Dr. Kirkland. Mrs. Kirkland is very happy that her son saved a captain of industry, although Dr. Kirkland tells her that it's unlikely that he'll have robber barons coming to his office to get help. And when he said the words robber barons, it had me wondering about whether that was a term that was used back in the 1880s or if this was something that was given to them in hindsight.
No, I think that, this was definitely already being used. The term robber barons to describe this new, breed of millionaires who were kind of seen as swindling the public, right? And perhaps creating monopolies and taking advantage of politicians and corrupt, etc. That dates back to an 1870 article that was published in the Atlantic Monthly magazine.
Okay, so that checks out. Of course it does. Not surprised. Anyway, after all of this surgical drama, I mean, Larry is still feeling hurt by Marian calling off their engagement. But George and Bertha are actually now both on board with these two reconciling. So, Tom, I guess all Marian had to do was save George's life to get in Bertha's good books.
And that's all she had to do. But seriously, I was impressed by the way that Marian just got right in there. I mean, she was asked to help out by Dr. Kirkland, and there she was applying pressure. I mean, she was a perfect medical assistant. We got to give her some props for that.
Yeah, she did not hesitate at all. And later we see that she was literally covered in George's blood.
She was. But as far as all of the Larian drama, that's another story. That got complicated. I feel like between last episode and this episode, I just kind of got lost a couple times keeping track of who was mad at who for what.
I know, and I just want them to kiss and make up. Come on, get back together.
But apparently not yet, because they have to unravel this drama, which was so complicated. I actually wrote it down. Let's see. There was a white lie, right, by Larry. Then Marian believed Jack, but not Larry, who she was engaged to. She had broken off the engagement, but then he wouldn't take her back. They were both hurt, but we know that they love each other, right?
Yeah.
I know. It's complicated.
It's so complicated. And I think there are a lot of trust issues here that they need to actually work out together before they can move forward as a couple. Lots to work on.
Well, and while George and Bertha are encouraging Marian not to give up on Larry, Aunt Agnes actually seems to be, shall we say, relieved that Marian is going to be moving on from this family.
This is about Marian and the man that she loves.
Don't be naive. You don't just marry a man. You marry a life, and Marian deserves better. Someone from a stable, traditional, well-established family.
That's no guarantee of a happy marriage. When you married Arnold, you had all that. How did you feel about it?
I don't remember much.
Is that what you want? For Marian?
Yeah, a little reminder there that Agnes's husband, Arnold, had come from a good family, but that he had also been an abusive husband.
Exactly. And this fits into the whole overarching theme of this season, whether it's better to marry for love or to marry for money/power. But also, other big news about Agnes. She's been asked to serve as the vice president of the New York Heritage Society. And I imagine that position would have been quite a big honor for her.
Absolutely. And the real life New York Historical Society did count, New York's leading and oldest families, most prominent families among its leadership roles and on its board of directors. In fact, one of the founding families behind the society was the Stuyvesant family, all the way back in the very early 1800s. So this very much would have been an honor for Agnes as a descendant of the Livingstons to serve on the board of directors. But by the way, I also kind of got the vibe that Ada might have given a little contribution to the cause. Did you also get that feeling?
I mean, I think she probably did. She definitely went behind Agnes's back at some point to find out what Mrs. Foster actually wanted. And she must have known that Agnes would want to say yes to this offer. So she orchestrated that whole thing. But anyway, all of this has put Agnes in a really good mood, so much so that she has finally ceded her position at the head of the table.
I think the time has come for you to take the head of the table.
But you've always...
You are running the family as well as this house. It is time for you to be at the head.
And Agnes actually winks. Did you see that?
A notable event, Agnes winks. I love this scene. Yeah. And it's the kind of thing like Bannister pulling out Ada's chair and her taking her place there. It's the kind of thing that might seem small, but it's actually huge, right? It has a huge significance. Ada really worked for this. She is not the same Aunt Ada from season 1.
Mm-hmm.
She has become somebody else who's much stronger and who is thinking about her family. She's taking care of her own sister, and she's paying the bills. Let's not forget. I'm also glad that Marian and Oscar both got to witness that moment. And later, we actually follow Oscar to the opera, where he bumps into Mamie Fish.
I thought you didn't like Wagner.
Of course not. I have impeccable taste.
Yeah, what was that about?
Well, that was a clever little nod to a operatic drama that was playing out among audiences in New York in the 1880s. There were the sort of Italian and French opera audiences on one side, and the German and other operas on the other. And the first season of the Metropolitan Opera in 1883 was mostly in Italian and French, but the second season was mostly in German. So here we are in the second season of the Metropolitan Opera, and Oscar isn't so sure how he feels about those German operas. It's a clever little nod to history.
And also, before returning to his box, Oscar bumps into Mrs. Winterton, our favorite. I mean, now she's newly widowed. Oscar is back to his old ways. I mean, his generous side did not last long. And he realizes that a fake relationship between them could be mutually beneficial, shall we say. He promises to get Mrs. Winterton invited to Bertha's ball, and he goes to visit Bertha, which I think is the first time we've seen Oscar and Bertha alone together.
Might you consider inviting Mrs. Winterton to your ball?
Heavens. I thought the death of her husband had taken her off the board. What about Mrs. Astor?
Mrs. Astor doesn't favor her, but I believe your support would be a bastion against that. The day is coming when you will be as strong as Mrs. Astor, or stronger.
Very well, Mr. Van Ryn. I will invite her. But I expect to see Miss Brooke there as well.
And of course, Bertha wants something in return.
Right. And she wants Marian to come to her own ball in Newport, which just had me thinking, wow, things have really turned upside down when Bertha Russell is scheming to get Marian Brooke to show up for a ball. Things have changed, Alicia.
Absolutely.
But Oscar, of course, has a scheme of his own, the ultimate scheme, which is that he and Mrs. Winterton can marry. Both of them lead their own private lives in the country at their own country houses and appear together in the city as a couple. And between her money and his connections, well, he says they would have, quote, the world at their feet.
Yeah, I'm terrified about what it could mean to have these two together. I mean, this is such an odd couple. I can't wait to see what happens. But let's switch to Jack now, because he is living in his big house, but he still makes time for his old colleagues downstairs, and Bridget comes to visit him, which leads to a very sweet scene. I mean, and also another step in this possible relationship between them.
Yeah, this was one of my favorite scenes in this episode. It was just so cute. I mean, remember last scene, you and I were talking about how we were worried about Jack in that big old house on his own. But now with Bridget there, he says that he feels safe. which is kind of a bold thing for him to say. And they kind of quickly move on. It doesn't make her uncomfortable. And next thing you know, they're just kind of like huddling across the table, talking to each other and sharing their day together. I found it really moving.
It is moving. It's lovely. And, Bridget doesn't think she should sit, but Jack reminds her that she's not a servant in his house. She's a guest of the master. But if this happened in real life, I imagine it would be hard for a wealthy man like Jack to continue a friendship or even a romance with a servant.
Well, already Jack's sudden shift from being a footman to this wealthy entrepreneur would have been highly, highly unusual. So there's that. So in 1884, then, they would have belonged now to two distinctly, different classes. So a relationship between Jack and Bridget would be highly unlikely if he was committed, to living in that new social class of his. But maybe he doesn't care.
Yeah, I hope not, because I love to live vicariously through this show and all the different romances. So I can't wait to see more from this possible couple. And also, we get a lovely romance with Peggy and Dr. Kirkland. Well, it starts out quite tumultuous, actually, in this episode, because he never got the chance to talk to her before he needed to go and, save George's life. And Peggy and Dorothy are quite giggly when they think about what he could possibly be wanting to talk to her about. They think maybe he's ready to propose. But this scene of Peggy laughing cuts abruptly to Peggy crying, and she is sitting very far apart from Dr. Kirkland, who is now unsure about their relationship because of her past.
Yeah, it's suddenly clear to us that it's over, right? It seems to be over. I mean, there's even the ultimate sadness of handing back over his handkerchief.
Yeah.
I just loved that scene of mother and daughter, from the top of the stairs looking down. You just feel Peggy's sadness.
Oh, she is devastated. It is heartbreaking. But Dorothy has her back. When she sees Mrs. Kirkland, she does not hold back. And this is Audrey McDonald and Felicia Rashad, just a masterclass in acting.
It is uncanny to me how you can see everyone else's flaws and mistakes, but not your own.
Oh, yeah. We have just been waiting for Audra, or rather Dorothy, to let off some steam on Mrs. Kirkland, and we finally got it. I mean, she is like quoting Bible verses to the pastor's wife here, and it is everything I've been waiting for. Mrs. Kirkland, of course, gets some zingers in of her own, but Dorothy gets the last word. And reminds Mrs. Kirkland that she and her family will be attending that ball. Thank you very much.
Yeah, with their heads held high, too. And Mrs. Kirkland also hears all about her meddling from her son and her husband. Dr. Kirkland finally stands up to his own mother, and Mr. Kirkland puts her in her place with a resounding woman.
Are you taking the liar's side above your wife? I had a duty to inform and protect our son.
You have sown calamity and heartbreak, and this is not the first time. It stops now.
I just did what I thought was right.
For whom?
Another pretty intense scene, and the same words could have been said by George to Bertha. I realized while watching this that Mrs. Kirkland and Bertha have some things in common, right? They've both been trying to control their children's futures, only to have their husbands and their children turn on them. Mm-hmm. So an interesting parallel there. But I did like how the Reverend Kirkland gave William some advice here, some good fatherly advice, patting his heart, and telling him, follow this, follow this.
Yeah, and we will follow that to the balls, because we have not just one ball to end this season. No. We have two. Bertha's ball and the ball that Peggy does attend, both happening in Newport.
Yes, first up, Bertha's ball. We see Bertha back in New York visiting Mrs. Astor, who is joined by her daughter, Charlotte. Charlotte, who is rumored to be having this affair with Mr. Barrow. Well, Bertha comes over to tell Mrs. Astor that, in fact, Aurora Fane will be invited to her big ball in Newport. And Mrs. Astor is aghast.
If you receive them, it will become an epidemic.
and I cannot be a part of that.
Even though what Bertha is proposing here could save Mrs. Astor's own daughter's place in society.
I'm to spend the rest of my life making needlepoint samplers in front of the fire?
For that, you'd need to learn to thread a needle.
Whew, that's really harsh. And we've been talking about divorce throughout this whole season, how it was a scandal at the time, leading to the exclusion of divorced women. But for Mrs. Astor and Charlotte, how did these scenes compare to what happened in real life?
You know, as we discussed, divorced women, of course, were excluded from high society. That would change with Alva Vanderbilt's high-profile divorce in 1895. But what we're watching right now was playing out years before. Charlotte Drayton's divorce was back in 1892. So this was very much scandalous in high society, and it was indeed Mrs. Astor who was upholding this rule that divorced women should not be permitted to attend events in high society.
Whew, that's a lot. And so Charlotte did actually go through the divorce despite all of this.
She would. 2 years later, in 1894, she would divorce her husband. She convinced her mother that it was not her fault at all, but rather her husband's. Some speculated that the Astor fortune paid off Mr. Drayton to keep quiet and go along with it. Who knows? But now Mrs. Astor was faced with a real decision of whether or not to accept her own daughter, who was now divorced, into society. This was something she had never permitted of anybody else. Now, would she for her own daughter? This was real.
Wow. So yeah, it does closely mirror the show. And, you know, speaking of characters based on real life figures, Bertha's worried that no one's going to show up to her ball, but Gladys and the Duke are there and they are looking like a committed, loving pair.
Yeah. How do you like that? I think from what you and I have both read in Consuelo's memoir, The Glitter and the Gold, they are much more in love on the show than the real life Consuelo and Duke of Marlborough were in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you read about the real Duke, you will realize he was much less appealing than Hector is overall. But anyway, back to the ball. Marian escorts a nervous Aurora Fane. Agnes and Ada arrive. Charlotte Drayton has defied her mother to be there. And there is an impressive display of illumination.
That was impressive, and it would have very much been impressive in 1884. Remember back in season 1 in 1882 when Edison lit up, the New York Times office in the area around City Hall, which really did happen in 1882. So this was new technology, and the wealthiest New Yorkers were using this technology to occasionally dazzle their guests and, to pay big bucks to have generators to produce these kinds of effects.
Yeah, it is dazzling, especially when Mrs. Astor arrives and we see a shot of the back of her, we see her jewelry, and we hear the whispers of, Mrs. Astor is here, Mrs. Astor is here.
Yeah, that was, and yeah, the jewelry, the diamond necklace was just a showstopper there. And in real life, her jewelry was so spectacular. Her diamonds were famous, and they were actually written about in the newspaper articles that were written about the various parties that she threw or attended, So she made a statement.
Yeah, she truly has a change of heart. Charlotte is in shock because she tells Charlotte that she is not an embarrassment after all. So what about the real Mrs. Astor? Did she end up supporting her daughter?
Yeah, society really speculated, about what Mrs. Astor would do at her first party that she held, her first reception, following her 2-year period of mourning. Would her daughter Charlotte be permitted to be there? And we have discussed Elizabeth Drexel Lair's book, King Lear, her memoir of the Gilded Age. She was a friend of Mrs. Astor, and she wrote, quote, "Their eyes turned anxiously toward Mrs. Astor as they entered the salon. Then they sighed with relief. Mrs. Drayton, Charlotte, was standing by her mother, calmly helping her to receive her guests." So yeah, in real life, Mrs. Astor did bend on this issue and ultimately did really stand in public alongside her daughter.
Okay, good. And, here once again, Bertha has triumphed. And speaking of standing up, George has swigged some laudanum to be able to be standing upright. And also Larry is at the ball too.
That laudanum, by the way, I had to look it up because at first I was like, is he poisoning himself? What is he drinking? And then realized, oh, it's just laudanum. I mean, like back in the day, people took it. It's a combination of opium and alcohol, and that was used to, soothe pain, which it clearly did, because then George hops back in and hits the ballroom. And meanwhile, then Larry and Marian step outside, finally together. Finally, we seem to work through, this confusion that has surrounded them for several episodes. And they seem to make some progress together and really demonstrate to each other and to us that even, despite the fact that there might be misunderstandings and trust issues that come up in the future, at the very core, they do really seem to love each other. And that's all that seems to matter at that point.
Yeah, it's very sweet, But at Peggy's ball, we need to go over there right now because I have to talk about this big scene. Dr. Kirkland arrives. He ditches his parents to speak with Mr. Scott, asks for Peggy's hand in marriage, and he instantly proposes. And this scene is just so beautiful. There is slow motion camera work. The music stops at Peggy's face. She shows a mixture of happiness and a little bit of hope. Everyone is watching. They dance, and then he pops the question.
It feels so good to see Peggy finally happy, right? And she is just joyful as she turns on the dance floor, releasing her previous dance partner and taking up with Dr. Kirkland as they dance. And then he just pulls the ultimate suave move of twirling her around, and then he winds up on one knee and proposes to her.
Yeah, she deserves all the happiness. I'm thrilled for her. But of course, I have to ask for the real life parallels. Would this kind of public proposal have happened back in the 1880s?
Well, if we're going to nitpick, Alicia, I did sort of like flip through some etiquette guides surrounding issues of marriages and proposals. It seems that in the Gilded Age, in the 1880s, the proposal was a very private process, right? It was a very private affair. May have been possibly witnessed by some members of the family, but it seems like it would have been somewhat taboo to have been witnessed by an entire dance floor. However, it makes brilliant TV. And I'm glad he got down.
Yeah, it makes for great TV. But, for the Russells, it turns out that George hasn't forgiven Bertha at all. And his near-death experience has only clarified everything for him.
I don't blame you for being ruthless. I admire it. It's what we share. But I'm ruthless in business, not with the people I love.
And I am ruthless for the people I love. Can you not see that? Is this because of the shooting?
Maybe. It's made me examine my life. And I don't like everything I see.
So you're not coming home?
Not until we know what we want.
I know what I want.
Of course you do.
Oh, this is a big rift between them. I mean, George leaves again, and it's hard to know what's going to happen if he's going to come back.
I kind of felt like Bertha there for a second. Like I was sort of stumbling around trying to make sense of what just happened. Like, oh, so suddenly after everything that happened the night before, like mean George is back.
Yeah.
I was completely confused and honestly kind of disappointed.
Yeah, and he misses out on hearing the happy news because just after he leaves, Gladys comes in to tell her mother that she is pregnant. There's a baby heir on the way, if we can say that.
At this moment, Bertha is like delirious, and it's too late to tell George. And in real life, Consuelo would actually give birth 22 months after her wedding to the Duke of Marlborough. She would give birth to a baby boy, John Spencer Churchill, on September 18th, 1897. But for Gladys here, would she be giving birth to a baby boy or a baby girl? There were real implications now that she had joined English nobility. So we shall see.
We shall see. And can you believe it, Tom? That wraps up the end of season 3 of The Gilded Age. I mean, gosh, what a season. I have to say, This was I think, my favorite season of so far of the show. I really enjoyed watching it. There were ups, there were downs, there were big transformations for existing characters, and we also met plenty of new characters as well.
It kept me glued to my seat and waiting for the next episode. I mean, I laughed, I cried, I jumped, I nearly reached for my own laudanum. I needed something to sort of like calm down. It was great. I'm also just so happy that the show's creators packed this season with so much history.
Absolutely. And I was so happy to learn about all that history from you. But, we're not done with episode 8 just yet, because when we come back, we'll be talking all about this finale episode with Louisa Jacobson, Carrie Coon, Morgan Spector, and director Salli Richardson-Whitfield.
Welcome back to the official Gilded Age podcast. I am Tom Meyers, joined as always by my dear friend, Alicia Malone.
Hello, Tom. And we have got 3 big interviews coming up, and we are starting with someone very special. She plays Marian, and she has been on a journey this season. We are talking with Louisa Jacobson.
Well, Louisa Jacobson, thank you so much for coming back on to the official Gilded Age podcast. It's so nice to see you again.
It's great to see you guys again.
We have so much, obviously, that we can talk about today, but we've just finished watching episode 8. So dramatic. And actually, episode 8 begins dramatically, too, with George Russell being shot. And Marian finds herself pretty much immediately, like, hands-on, helping to save his life. It's a really tense scene. Can you take us sort of behind the scenes a little bit and tell us what it was like to shoot that?
Sure. I mean, that scene was so exciting. We don't really have anything like that in the show, or at least nothing that I had been a part of. We had these amazing effects makeup artists coming and creating this fake, they had created this fake bodice for George, a fake torso, excuse me. So it's just incredible to witness the artistry, not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera. Once they called action and we were really doing that scene where George's body is on the table and everything was working, like we would do a couple of shots, right, without the blood pumping through because they had to save it for the coverage where they were showing the body. But once we did the shot where they were showing his body bleeding, it was as if it was really happening in front of me. I mean, all the energy was just really tense and there was blood coming out of his chest. And I was very nervous for poor Morgan's life in front of me,
Understandably.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool. It's really amazing.
That's just part of the whole emotional journey that Marian goes on this season. We've been using that word a lot, journey, to describe, what she's been through because she's excited about the proposal, then she's feeling betrayed by Larry. But I imagine for you as an actor, it must be a real joyful challenge to get to portray a character that goes through all of these peaks and troughs.
It's exciting to see her fears come out, Marian's insecurities, to portray more corners and depths of her personality and humanity than just her being happy at being engaged or proposed to or, being confused at first coming to New York. Like, it's fun to kind of get into the more complex areas of her.
And, I think her story is very relatable. I'm sure a lot of people, myself included, can relate to that feeling of distrust or this feeling of like, oh no, this is happening again. And her storyline is also one of the storylines that speaks to this idea of the stakes being so much higher for women during society at this time.
Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest challenges, right? Because a 2025 audience is seeing this and they're like, probably like, he didn't do anything. It's not a big deal. So I'm kind of batting up a little bit because the audience is ahead of me, not only in plot, but also in time. And I was like, wait a minute. I think we need to hear a little bit more from Marian about why she's just going to cut this off. And I think that for a modern audience, you really need that. Otherwise, it comes across as just sort of rash and unreasonable. The stakes are high for a number of reasons. She sees Aurora being ostracized in society because her husband cheated on her, which feels so unfair. She's seeing Gladys being married off to a duke without her consent. Last season, she saw T. Thomas Fortune, who was married, cheat on his wife with Peggy. And then in season 2, she's sort of pressured by her aunts to marry someone sensible. But she doesn't want to get into a marriage and lose her rights and her right to own property, her right to her own life, to someone that she doesn't even love. And I think that I think that women at that time were struggling with that. And when she finds out she's been lied to about where Larry went that night, she's very, very triggered. And she is smart and is aware that at a place like the Haymarket, married men are going out and they are sleeping with sex workers. So it's not unreasonable for Marian to deduce that what Larry was doing with all of his buddies was just that. And that puts her at risk health-wise. I mean, the American Health Association had called attention to what they called social diseases at the time, which were venereal diseases. Not only is her health at risk, she feels very slighted also. And word could get out about this. And like I said, she has eyes on her now. There's people watching. So the stakes are high for her. And I think it's just a big betrayal.
It makes me think of when you were saying to Peggy, it's particularly hurtful that he did this on the night that, we had just told our aunts and his parents. I'm just thinking of how you as an actress, that's quite a demand on you, right? To take that entirely complex universe that you just described and convey that.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely difficult. I was really grateful to be given this wonderful scene with Ada where I get to say, I'm doing this because I'm so scared. I've been really, really effed over by all these men. I'm so fed up with it. What am I supposed to do? You see her really struggle, and I just wanted that. So I'm grateful that got it in there.
I know you're a big history buff, and that's something you're interested in. What kinds of research do you do?
Well, I listen to the Bowery Boys podcast. To give you guys a shout out, I absolutely
Don't make me blush. Thank you, thank you.
It really is so wonderful. Also, something that I came across, which was super cool, this season actually, the scene where Larry comes to my workplace, one of the very limited times you see Marian working, he comes to her classroom to talk it out, to be like, what's going on, girl? Why did you end this engagement? That was shot at Millneck Lutheran School for the Deaf, which was also known as the Lillian Sefton Dodge House.
And what city is that in?
It was in Long Island. And
Okay.
It was not technically a Gilded Age era building, but it was owned by this woman, Lillian Sefton Dodge, and her husband, he was a stained glass artist. But his wife is super interesting. She owned this cosmetics company called Harriet Hubbard Eyre. And when she died, she was the richest woman in the United States. I'm learning all this history inside this house because the room that they had me getting dressed in and waiting in for my scene to start was this sort of mausoleum to Harriet Hubbard Eyre cosmetics. And I started reading all these framed newspaper pamphlets, and Harriet Hubbard Eyre was born in the 1840s, and she died in 1903. She was a Chicago socialite who was married in 1866 when she was 17 to a man who was 14 years her senior. She had 2 kids. She separated from him in 1882. And as we see on this show, right, separating from your husband or getting a divorce is a big no-no. So she left Chicago. And in her travels in France, she came across these creams that I guess she really liked. She brought it to the States and she made her own product. And she essentially started the first cosmetics company in the United States.
Amazing.
And was the wealthiest self-made woman in the United States, which I think is so cool. She was the original Estee Lauder. Like I find that so cool. And I just discovered all this while I was shooting there. But I think her business was thriving during the Gilded Age. It's likely that Marian saw women like this as examples. And that's part of the reason why she is interested in things beyond marriage and is also skeptical of getting married because she wants to have control over her finances. She wants to own her own property, perhaps, there's all those things.
I love on a very meta level that you, Louisa, this was in your mind as you were, on set shooting this scene with Larry coming to disturb you in your place of work. There's something beautiful about that.
It was great inspiration to have right before doing that scene.
Louisa, so nice to talk to you. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Wow, that was really fun to talk to Louisa again. I always enjoy talking to Louisa about history because she's so into New York history. I thought it was really telling, that this history is always in her mind when she's shooting these scenes.
Yeah, in her mind and in her earbuds, because she's a big fan of your podcast, Tom, Bowery Boys, which is such a nice thing to hear.
Yes.
And, she's talked a little bit about episode 8 and how, the dramatic nature of the beginning scene in episode 8. And we're going to hear more about that from two people very much involved with that scene. Let's go to part 2 of our chat with Carrie Coon and Morgan Spector.
So 308 opens here.
Operating table.
Yes.
Oh!
Very dramatic
Oh
opening.
my goodness, that is a dramatic opening. Heavens, that was a fun day.
Yeah, it was a fun day.
Can you tell us about that day? What was it? It looked very
We
emotional.
never get to do that stuff. It's not the Nick.
It was cool.
Right.
It was really cool. I mean, we get prosthetic designers, and he has a pretend chest, and you got an actor learning to do doctor things and work on the props. There's props everywhere and blood, and it's great.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was fun. It also felt like because we have how many people? There's like 4 or 5 of us all there, and everybody's like helping, and everybody's like getting freaked out to different degrees. It was a real moment of kind of ensemble acting.
And the effects were so good. I remember Louisa being particularly rattled by what she was seeing.
Yeah,
because they make it so real, and it's your job, to sort of embrace those circumstances, and the good ones do. And I remember the kids being kind of rattled by it.
The kids were a little rattled, and they scanned me, and they built this piece of my chest. And if I just looked at myself, I mean, it looked exactly like my body. It was insane.
My greatest regret was not getting a photograph wearing it.
Yeah.
Myself.
You should have. Oh, shit.
I planned on it. Didn't do it. It's worth
so
digging
lame.
it out of
Should've
storage
done that,
for that.
Were you actually laying there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were there, but
I'm wearing a silicone prosthetic. It's about 3/4 of an inch thick, and they were able to cut into it. They were able to run a tube underneath and have blood come out. Like it was really
and when they
super cool.
popped out that bullet,
that
was coming out of the side of you.
Wow.
Yeah. So Jordan's able to just do like almost exactly realistic surgery.
That's the stuff where he's like, it's like Halloween.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Yeah, it's rattling to watch and also quite emotional to watch too. I almost cried watching it, especially with Bertha as George goes into shock and she's like, please. Like, it must have been an emotional scene to shoot as well.
Yeah, those are. I mean, the thing about those days is that you always have to pace yourself because you're going to do it for many hours, and so inevitably there comes a take where you're like, nope. I need a sandwich. It's just like you're totally bone dry because you've been crying for 6 hours. And so it really is kind of about, pacing yourself through those shots. And that's the difference between like TV and film is that, when you do something like that, you do it the whole day. And in the theater, you get to like get a little run up to the climax and then cry. And that's just not the way TV and film is. It's a different kind of acting challenge.
Both George and Bertha have a real kind of awakening as a result of this brush with death. But for George, it's like he has a sense of, what's his priorities are, he reevaluates his priorities and he sort of realizes that actually he should never have let his daughter be married off in this way, that it wasn't done the right way. It wasn't done out of care, he feels. And I think
for Bertha, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like she just watched her husband almost die, and she's realized how much she loves him and how much she doesn't want to lose him.
That's right.
And they both end up kind of going in these two different directions as a result
Yes.
of this thing. So it's
that's true.
It's fascinating.
We spoke earlier in the season with Cynthia and with Christine about episode 7 when you get to actually visit the Van Ryn house.
I know, and we were hoping we would have made more of it.
Yeah, how was
Christine-
that for you?
Well, I wish I didn't even speak. I don't even have lines in that scene. I think
You
I have one
nod.
line. And Christine said, I always imagined there would be a shot of your foot crossing my threshold. And I said, me too. But it just, I mean, in some way, it just goes to show how far we've come in the relationship, that it doesn't really rate, that's we've kind of dispensed with that argument now. But we were a little bit disappointed not to get to make more, or even just a snarky comment about the decorating. At least a snarky comment about her decorating.
I guess you had Ward McAllister on the mind. Yes,
Yes,
that
we
was
were.
the whole
Well,
thing.
certainly, bigger things, bigger fish to fry now. But yeah, you kind of hope there's going to be more of a meal, make more of a meal out of it. But that's old news. That's season 1.
Yeah,
We're moving
well,
on.
speaking of season 1, it's sort of a nice full circle moment where now Bertha is hosting the big ball at the end of the
Yes.
season in Newport. For you personally, filming a ball for the second time, did you feel any different?
Well, I wasn't pregnant anymore.
Felt
Felt really
what I was
different.
thinking, yeah.
Felt really different. Gave birth just a few weeks after that last ball. And also I remember my waistline was up to my, it was an Empire waist in my previous dress. The balls are long nights. And we actually didn't have as much to do because you were injured.
Yeah, it was
and so we didn't have to dance. Normally, you're spending a lot of time getting prepped for the ballroom dancing. But sadly, we didn't get to participate in the dancing this season. We just got to watch everybody else mess it up every shot, shot after shot, and you hope you get one good take because it's very hard to do.
Yeah.
Great choreographers working and everything, but those tend to be really long nights. So I don't approach them as a party planner. It's just it's like, like you're trying to eat a lot of snacks and pace yourself again because you're up all night.
Stay hydrated.
Dancing, and I remember the wind of that night. One of the nights we were shooting in the house, there was this incredible gust of wind coming through, and it was right when Kelly Curran was taking the carpet, and it just billowed out her dress in the most magnificent diva way. I mean, the crew was just like, and I was just like, go to hell, Kelly. Obviously I adore her. She's a great nemesis, but it was so Turner, just like her taking focus. It was great. But those nights are so fun because everybody's together.
Well, we love this season, so thank you both so much.
Thank
Carrie,
you.
Coon, Morgan, Spector, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Carrie, Coon, Morgan, Spector, there's so much fun to talk to, and how fascinating, Tom, to hear all about how they filmed that scene, that surgery scene with the fake torso. I wish we could see a photo of Morgan wearing that fake torso.
I know there's got to be a photo someplace, right? Instagram, someplace. But so realistic on set as well. I mean, it certainly put them in the mood. And I think that really comes through in the episode. And today's episode, by the way, was directed by Sally Richardson-Whitfield, who we will talk to right now.
Sally, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. It's lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you. I'm excited to be here.
And I know that you have been an executive producer on all 3 seasons of the show. You directed episodes in season 1, and you're back as a director for season 3. What was it like returning as a director this season? Were there any differences you noticed from season 1?
It's just gotten bigger and better, honestly. That's the only difference I can see. We have such a lovely group of people, cast and crew, Julian, Sonia. So it's really a delight when you come back to family and things are, run easily. So that's all I can say. It's great to be back and a lot of fun.
Well, speaking of bigger and better, you got to helm the final 2 episodes of the season. How was that? That must have been fun, just kind of land that ship.
Well, I had been telling Michael Engler for a while that I was a bit annoyed that I didn't get a ball before because he's gotten the balls. So then I got to get the 2 biggest balls. And yeah, I mean, that was really what I was focused on is how do I bring these 2 different worlds to life in a different way. So it was very exciting for me to do. And then obviously the opening of 8 is a completely almost a different show, and I was just very excited to explore different ways to tell the story of Gilded after doing it so long, you know.
Yeah, we wanted to ask you about that just because it is so dramatic. It is so different. You know, that first scene, even the way that it's shot is different as George is being raced through the streets back home for this emergency operation. Can you talk about what was this a handheld camera that you were using there?
It was. I talked to David Crockett, one of our execs who's on the set all the time, one of our EPs, and I said, so I know I've been gone a while, but I think I may go rogue. And I think, you know, because we really do have a style on the show. We don't do handheld, but I felt like this was a pivotal point in our story, and we needed to do something different to really accentuate, you know, the danger of what was happening and just to surprise people. So they let me do it. When they were like, yeah, do whatever you want to do. And I think that it definitely jolted the audience, and it's an exciting opener.
Well, Louisa, Carrie and Morgan were all saying how, you know, the fake chest that he wore with the fake blood really helped them, you know, set the scene, that they could really feel like they were in the moment. But what are the technicalities involved as a director when you're dealing with fake blood and a fake chest?
It is definitely a series of steps that we have to go through. And we did like 2 to 3 different rehearsals with our young Dr. Kirkland, so that he could really feel like he was a doctor, so that it could come off natural. And I really love his performance because he's so calm, and you trust him and you believe that he knows what he's doing. And those rehearsals definitely helped us. You kind of have to go through these steps of, okay, we have blood in now and blood we don't have. Then all of a sudden, let's bring in the hoses so we can, you know, as we get tight in details, so we can now push the blood through so it comes through naturally. So it does make it a bit more technical than you would like it to be on the day.
Yeah, you did a good job. Both Tom and I were like viscerally wincing at what we were seeing. It was so scary.
We don't do a lot of blood on Gilded, so I thought I'd bring it all in now.
No,
Blue
it was
blood.
fantastic.
You do blue blood.
Yeah. That's right. Well, speaking of blue blood, the Kirklands have been a wonderful addition to season 3, and episode 8, in the finale episode, you get this big showdown between Mrs. Kirkland and Mrs. Scott. So what was it like for you as a director just to see Audra McDonald and Phylicia Rashad going head to head?
To bring these 2 women together in this beautiful cat fight is really a dream come true for me. You know, as a young actress, I would have thought, I just want to be in a scene with these 2 women and act. And now to be in charge of their performance is a wonderful honor and was so much fun. And what I love about both of them is that they're so open to notes from me, and really for this to be this wonderful collaboration. And it was a joy, and it'll be one of those memories that I take with me, I think, for the rest of my life.
Tell us about the, in these 2 episodes that you directed, episode 7 and 8, there have also been some really heavy-hitting emotional scenes too, right? Just Marian's wrestling with her trust issues around Larry. And, you know, there was also Oscar's grief in front of his mother and Marian's comforting of him. How were those to direct?
Well, and I think about Louisa, who plays Marian in that scene, and it was a hard one for her and for me. You know, Louisa cares so much about this character. And so we took the time. You know, I did do a little trick with her, because sometimes when actors, sometimes they're really good and fresh in the beginning. And I kind of felt like she's ready. And I went in and I'm like, let's go to the close-up right now. We don't need to tell her. Let's just go. She's ready. I don't want to lose it. And she's giving this, you know, amazing performance that I think you see. I think, honestly, it's one of her best and one of my favorites. And then later on, she's like, well, okay, I know we have to go to the tighter ones. I hope I still have it. I go, oh, babe, I got that. I'm like, it's done. And there's just, sometimes you can be more free when you don't think it's time that now I have to give it. And then with Oscar or Blake, he is able to do, we would kind of, when we were doing that performance, we do it big, we do it more controlled, we would do it more sarcastic. He really tried all these different levels so we could find where was going to be the right spot for it. And what I loved about that scene so much is, we're very guarded in Gilded. You don't really get those big outbursts because everyone is so worried about how they're seen and what are the right manners. And you really get to see Oscar, the character, Blake, the actor, be able to be completely raw and real and dramatic. And again, I think it gave him opportunity to give one of his best performances also.
And as you mentioned, you got to direct 2 balls for the final episode. There are 2 balls in this episode, Bertha's ball and the ball that Peggy attends. What kinds of differences did you want to show or highlight between the 2 balls?
Well, I think that Kasha did it perfectly. Obviously, we have these different wardrobe, so that, well, you're going to know it's 2 different balls because one's a black ball and one's a white ball. But I'm like, oh, that'd be like, oh, it's just the clothes. You have no idea. But there is a different, we had more of this kind of, white and pastel colors for the black elite ball. That felt more cotillion-like. And we still have balls like that to this day. And it reminds me of the ones that I saw growing up within the Black community. And then Bertha's ball, she's always still, she's still trying to push the envelope, So it's all these brighter colors and fanfare. But I did want to make sure that the Black elite ball felt just as grand in its own way. And I think that we were able to accomplish both. I also wanted to make sure that we could, like a lot of the shots that I did, you'll see we're like diving in, coming, off of a light, and then the same thing in the other ball, so that it really almost felt seamless, like it was one ball happening at the same time. But obviously 2 different ones. It was a great puzzle to put together. I love a puzzle, and that's what these 2 sequences were for me. And I have to, shout out my DP, Manuel, because, we are definitely a wonderful partnership in this, and I could not do it without him.
Well, we noticed also in Peggy's ball scene how, obviously, the big moment is when Dr. Kirkland steps out and she twirls around, and this winds up in, of course, a beautiful marriage proposal. But we saw slow motion photography. Speaking of
I
DP
told you I was doing crazy stuff all over the place.
Is that the first time we've seen slow-mo?
I really wanted that to feel like a fairy tale, like this beautiful Cinderella moment. And I felt that Peggy's character deserved it. And to date, I would say it's one of my favorite scenes I've ever shot. The moment when she turns, and as the camera is pushing in on her, she just looks like this beautiful angel, and she's it's just so pure, and it's so full of love, and every time I watch it fills me with emotion and a slight tear, and it just makes me so happy. And I think that, hopefully the audience is going to feel the same way.
I think it's impossible not to. I mean, it's so emotional, and the joy on her face is just so, it resonates.
And then over at Bertha's ball, the big moment is Mrs. Astor's arrival. Can you tell us about using the camera here? Because I love that, we see her back, and then we see the jewels and taking off the coat. It's like, it's a dramatic reveal, but it feels appropriate.
Everyone teases me on the set because they know that I like my pieces. And that is one of those scenes where it's lots of little pieces. And Mrs. Astor, is she or isn't she going to come to to the ball? And how do we build up the hype of that? And in her character, we always want to do something grand. So I think at the last minute, I felt like once we did that crane shot that kind of pushes in behind her as she comes in the door, I'm like, we need something gilded. Gilded is sometimes about these beautiful details to cut into this. And I'm like, it's this. It's the necklace. It's the reveal of the necklace. It's so gilded. It's so Mrs. Astor. It's so perfect for the moment. And and it just kind of built the tension. I love it. I love an entrance for characters, and I love lots of little pieces to tell the story.
And when you're storyboarding or when you're on set, I imagine you must have to work very closely with choreographer John Carafa on the balls, because it's almost like you have to choreograph the camera alongside the dancing.
Working with John, our choreographer, we definitely had routines that the dancers had been working on ahead of time. But what's so wonderful about him as a choreographer and the dancers that we have, there will be times when we needed something different. And on the day, I'm like, I need the camera to wrap here and then push here and then find the actors here. He's like, okay, give me a second. He'd work with them for, the little 2-3 minutes I would give him because we're in a hurry. And he'd be like, he goes, and you see a steady cam come in there and they'd work it out. But there's definitely, some tweaks that we have to do on the day so that we're not knocking people over as we're trying to swoosh through all these dancers. So he really wonderful to collaborate with him.
I remember when we spoke in season 1, how you mentioned that you liked how the Gilded Age explored some themes that are particularly relevant to today. And I'm curious about how you feel about that in season 3, if it continues to explore these relevant themes, and what's going on sort of in 2025.
It's actually pretty amazing how our show will reflect the times. Seeing that, we've probably been working on this for the last 2 years to get it ready, and just happens to be what's going on sort of in the world with, classism and money and how we deal with the idea of colorism within the Black community. The one thing that has grown so much this season is the Black elite storyline, and really delving into what it meant to be Black in the late 1800s, what it meant to have money in the late 1800s as a person of color. So it's been really amazing to explore these storylines for the first time. And I think for our audience, what I found is that in particular, the African-American community really loves it because they know it's an authentic storytelling. And it's not fantasy, and it's historical, and people really get to learn what it was like for them in the late 1800s, and enjoy the story. One thing that Julian and Sonia do so well is give you this history, but at the same time entertain, and that is very hard to do.
Well, Sally, thank you so much for your time, and big congratulations on season 3. Boo!
Congrats.
It's been a good season. I can't believe how well it's done. Or yes, actually, I can. Thank you so much for having me.
That was so fun, speaking with Sally. And I'm laughing about how she said that she went rogue on the Gilded Age in this episode at the beginning and really at the end.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Gilded Age has such a set style in terms of its visual look, but she added in some flourishes there and definitely made us cry. And I can't believe it, Tom, but that's the end of season 3 of the Gilded Age.
Don't make me cry, Alicia. I've been crying for the last 2 episodes. Let's stop. And there's no reason to cry. We're not going anywhere yet.
That's right. It's the end of the show, but not the end of our podcast just yet. So save your tears, especially because The Gilded Age has been picked up for season 4. Woo! Can't wait to see what happens to Peggy, to Marian, to all of our favorite characters. But in the meantime, join us in just a couple of days for a special bonus episode. And Tom and I will be talking through all of our favorite moments from the season. Yes, the ones that made us cry, but also the ones that made us swoon. And we have a bunch of new interviews, including Aurora Fane herself, Kelly O'Hara.
Yes.
I can't wait to speak with her. So tune into that in just a couple of days' time. But thank you so much for listening to us throughout this season. It's been so much fun.
It has been a great pleasure. What a series. What a season. And it's been really fun having you here. But save the tears.
Yes, save the tears. We'll see you soon. Bye.
This has been the official Gilded Age podcast, written, hosted, and produced by Alicia Malone and me, Tom Meyers.
The podcast is a production of HBO in collaboration with Pod People.
For Pod People, our supervising producer is Rebecca Chasson, associate producer Sam Gabauer, and our video editor is Susana Vasquez. Special thanks to Hannah Pedersen and Amy Machado.
For HBO Podcasts, our executive producer is Michael Gluckstadt, and associate producer is Aaron Kelly.